morning. This is the Cambria Community Services District Board of Directors, special meeting. We are working on the strategic plan. We had got a lot done yesterday, but we have more to do today. So I think we'll have another really encouraging and interesting discussion. So I'd like to call the meeting to order, and would you join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have all 5 of the board members present, so we do have a quorum. We had introductions yesterday. Does anybody think that it's necessary to have more introductions? No?
No, but I'd like to know from Haley who's attending the meeting.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. President Farmer.
Ron BG, Dennis Duchek, Michael Calderwood, Rochelle Benjamin, and Rollins.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Quinn.
I believe we are still working on the new strategic area of finance. I think we're ready. Where do we get?
Well, what
We didn't finish F&R yet, did we?
Yeah, I already warned Mr. Geary that I was gonna be calling on him to let him expound some on what he thinks he needs to be able to do what he does to have in the strategic plan. So, Mr. Geary, please inform us.
So starting off, I already know what's after, that's already on this list here. Everything in regard to that, funding and what needs to be done here. The next one that I currently have is the public restroom. I don't know if this falls within the CIP, but long term, we're gonna need to be looking into renovating that also. We're a little outdated there. You're talking about Sheffield and also Center Street. The pictures, the interior needs to be upgraded completely inside. The exterior needs a full gone through. We have termites on the ones on Center Street. That one there is pretty much deteriorated, so we're falling apart on that end. The lights and stuff of that nature too need to be upgraded also in there. From that one there, I do want to talk about our F&R yard. I know that's long term. Working with the water department in regards to the construction, everything of that nature. Due to being in that floodplain, the environmental threats that we have in there is a big one. You know, that's revamping that. Looking at that, in my new one, further after that would be the center of the creek. The whole thing with the debris that we're responsible for with easement and everything, the facilities throughout this little branch, all the way from Windsor, all the way back up, pretty close to Burton. There is quite a bit of overgrowth in there. I know that's a big concern for the environmental threats and the community. I know once all that becomes backlogs on our end, it goes into such as this here. That's all parking lot, and it affects the town on this side. As for equipment, stuff like that, I mean, I know there's quite a bit in our realm. You know, equipment wise, we got a good solid 5 years left in our equipment, as long as we can maintain. Like I've been doing in-house repairs and stuff of that nature. Placement for that, like I said, it'd be about 5 years. We would consider it like 3 years.
Is that for real though,
Yeah.
with the equipment?
Yeah, because we already have issues with the lower one.
I would think sooner, if it's not. I mean, I know you're really good at fixing things, but you know, Like realistically,
Realistically, 3 years. That would be the max, but I know we can, I know we do a lot of mandated nickel and diamond from our
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
We're pretty good about that, and making sure that everybody.
Bring a laser man.
yeah, yeah, my old boss used to say, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, like, I don't know if our equipment would last that long.
So those are my main things. I know, I don't know where this would fall, as for staffing, that's long term. I know this is all materialistic things. But as for staffing, that's something that I have a big concern with, financially, the funding for my department. That is the continuing burden of you. Looking at, from my aspect, looking at financial aspects of it. That's mainly, as for the CCSD lots. I mean, those there, we are getting that grant for 2 years, minimum. And also looking at the funding that we have left over, not looking into such as some of that East Ranch, eucalyptus trees, stuff of that nature. I know that was something that Dan and I talked about. I knew Mr. Duke has brought that up in regards of that. I know, like I said, the environmental impact that we have at Center of the Creek, that should be one of our number one priorities. But I know waiting to see what we're going to get left over out of this grant would be a push for that. So, it could be, at the end of this year or that first year that goes through and see where we end up, because the first impact that we're gonna have is the full lawn tear down. The following years is just maintenance. So we aren't gonna be spending as much on that secondary run as for maintaining those lots, especially with that grant. That's about, the main things that I have, that are concerning for me. I know the streetlights are another deal, looking into those. We do have 37, not 38 or 39. We have some that were taken out through car accidents. Just recently. It's very thinking. Kind of. I know we're currently looking into a budget adjustment, stuff of that nature. I had a individual come out, electric craft come out and look at the lights themselves, did a full-on inspection. It's not a lot, but it is a lot to my department to turn around and get them up to date, and also revamping them to LED, getting rid of all of the high expenditure on that end, which would lower the cost in PG&E on the utility side. Low maintenance, everything on that end. Like the dog park and also the trippers, the trash cans in the community. I know those are all private deals, but I know there's some kind of agreement that we had where certain organizations were able to obtain them as long as we were maintaining certain things. I know that's the lights and the trash cans. Yeah, there is quite a bit that's there. Yeah, and
Do you think, since the trippers are there to help unify the community for the tourists, that we might get the tourism board to give us a hand with that?
I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, well, we had some for the tourism board
We
here.
better check with the liaison. Who's that again?
Pardon
We have to check with the liaison. Who is that? Okay, I'm taking out. I'm taking.
Which would be a great deal on our end, because last time I heard, I believe there's what, 27?
25, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
There's actually 24.
24,
Yeah.
okay, because I have 3 in my yard that are brand new,
Well, that would make 27, the 3 that you have.
correct, and then I have 4 frames that are in the back. So what we ended up doing, we already started this about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. We sanded and stained the ones that we currently have. So now it's turning around and going out in the public and pulling those 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. A lot of them have plants. So now we're trying to figure out how this is gonna work. Are they gonna uproot certain ones that need to be replaced? Because we're trying to work around the plants. I really don't wanna uproot everything. I know that's a community concern on that one there. But as for time wise, we're running out of time on our end. We're so strapped. We start on it for, like I said, a week, stain them, took another week for them to dry, 'cause it was too cold. I had my guys switch over to another deal, another project, we got that going, and now we're bouncing around, and this is where we're turning around to try to get that, accomplished, but it's kind of hard now, even with this missing of one of our members. So we're back into that boat again.
So your staff right now is you and two others.
I do have 3 until next week.
Oh, okay. And then,
Correct.
and then do you have anybody who's in the wait?
I have not gone through the, recruitment yet.
Okay,
That's one that we're gonna be working on.
okay,
Like as of today, as of Friday, my crew has been on Friday, Saturday, Monday, today, and also Wednesday, they're gonna do a meeting.
oh,
So
okay.
there's another draft where our group is actually collaborating with all the other departments, which I'm pretty good about, you know, helping out, as needed throughout our district. So they're going to get to that, and that's a solid, 9-10 hour season. So, I just took away, from different aspects. It's good experience for them to help out as needed. That's basically everything with my log.
I'll raise the issue, the CTB, Cambria Tourism Board meets second Tuesdays. So, it's on my calendar. I'll need a little bit of, more of what to ask, but at least I know enough to bring it up at this stage.
Correct.
I don't know exactly what to say, so it will be helpful.
Yeah, we can have
So what you really need.
okay.
Director Farmer, I think you have anything to.
Yes, thank you. David, with regard to the trippers, which is like trash, recycling and plants, that's what tripper stands for. So I'm the person that actually takes care of them with regard to maintaining the plants and washing down the front of the, because they get really dirty.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, I wish I could recall the young man's name, but we paid somebody $100, maybe 3 years ago. We paid somebody $100 to clean and restain each of the planter boxes. I don't necessarily know why Claudia feels it's the obligation of the district to take care of this. But I'll follow up and talk with her and just let her know. And I have told her this in the past, but you've got to know Claudia. She gets stuck in her head how things are, and that's the way it is. So I'm going to get back to her and say that, and I've told her this, and I'll just remind her that you are on overload and you don't have the time, staff-wise and otherwise, to be taking care of the planter boxes. And we're probably just going to have to beautify Cambria. It's going to have to hire somebody to do them again. With regard to removing the plants, usually the plants get removed before they get stained. That type of thing.
And those people are ready to do that. So you
Correct.
just have to identify which ones you want to do.
Yeah, I've had a conversation with this department, in regards to that. I did turn around and purchase all the same. I do have all the same, all the new cigarette butt tubes that come in that they do the recycling on those. All those came into my yard.
Well,
So I have all those. Like I said, it's just coming down to the time.
Yeah.
And I do agree, about 3 years ago, there was a gentleman, I forget, Lorenzo. He did mention that, and they utilized our shop
Oh,
at that time. They
That's what
came
it's
in
all done, right?
and done in there. I know currently with everything, the disarray that we have in our shop, it's kind of a big no. At this point, we have a small section where we have 3 of them, and we're only one guy can work on it. They became pretty convoluted in that end once we started. But yeah, I know that was the only main thing is the location of that.
Yeah, I think the money I know the money came from community council maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when you're talking about money. She's referring to a grant that the trippers were either made or purchased originally with you guys. But the community council also funded the cigarette tubes. I'm glad you mentioned where they're at.
Yeah, they came into the yard.
So we can't get the money from the tourism board, which I would prefer. She could probably run a grant through the community council. Our grant procedure opens up, June first, ends, August first.
Can I jump in? Oh, okay. I'll work with Vice President Thomas, because the restroom that the restroom monies came from the tourism board.
Right.
It's a grant
There's a
application.
grant.
Yeah, it's a
yes.
grant application process that we could super fine and apply for and craft it to where we can talk about
Right.
troopers. But I do think even having this discussion highlights where we're not focusing on priorities for F&R in a way, like, I mean, it's a good discussion to have, but the fact that we're even talking about trash and receptacles and the outside wood piece of it and why it isn't being refinished right now is part of the problem.
Pretty far down the list, right?
It's so far down the list.
Yeah, well.
And so David's so passionate and he cares so much that he's torn on even the fact that, okay, I'll buy the stain, I'll do these 4, and I'm sitting here saying, David, please put down the stain and the sandpaper. You know, because you've got bigger fish to fry, you know, and so that's part of the problem where I think we start going back to F&R. You know, are we gonna add another strategic goal about relocating the facilities, and then do we circle back around on the management plan for our undeveloped parcels? So I don't know if we can finish that conversation. Yeah, go ahead. So, but those are some of the big ticket items that I'd really like to figure out how we're gonna save David, because I look at him over there.
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty clear. We need a couple more blue lines in
Yeah.
under F&R. And it's pretty clear that one of them is addressing the facilities. That is, every time we talk, what's urgent? We don't know,
On the floodplain.
we don't know when it's next, but wouldn't it be wonderful to have that finished before that next one?
So.
We've got to help. That's, I think that's the first thing.
So you're talking about the floodplain and the facilities there. Okay.
Road ground. An objective of, how do we say that? But, it's not present to the board. It's it is have those facilities relocated, including water.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the main thing. That's where we're piggybacking off of. If we do multiple programs or multiple plans, that's where it all piggyback off.
And there may be something on the CIP list, but the strategic plan should drive that.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say too, but basically, we don't have yet a plan or a price tag or engineering, those basic things. I think we can make those sort of the goal.
Yes.
Those are the goal, short term, have actual plan for it. And,
Yes, I mean, those would be supporting actions.
Well,
Under
no,
the goal.
oh, no, as a goal, well, the goal, you're gonna relocate, but I mean, as a short term, as an objective, the next year, I think that's that's all we can do, we don't have money for it.
Yeah,
Correct.
these aren't 1 year. The title of this now is 5-year. So, and
Yeah, well-
as we agreed last year, objectives are what we get done, delivered, functional, and then the supporting actions are the we take to get there.
How about a blue line? Relocate burial grounds facility, and everything. Supporting actions, the first one would be, develop plans and engineering and estimates. And obviously the next one would be funding and execution. But funding then the execution, but of course that execution may be 2 or 3 years down. But get that first step in and have a blue line, the blue line is basically relocation. Before I wanted to go back and I don't think we actually closed out the discussion of the management plan for the CCSD and developed parcels, because I was thinking. I would want to see again, this is the short-term enabling thing is. Develop a divestment strategy, divestment plan for. Getting, selling or even giving away lots that are surplus to whatever purposes we have for them. I mean, we started talking about this when, David was talking about the surplus lands. We never really closed out that discussion in the form of an objective,
So can we give them away without going through that entire process that comes on?
I'd have to, it's been a while, and one thing that was, kind of in conversation afterwards, a lot of those lots, I guess, have conservation easements that may fall into an exemption. Well, we'd have to look at each lot and the specifics. And then weigh that against the statute, what it does or doesn't allow. Even leases now fall under the surplus land.
So, Sarah, I think that's the first stage, obviously, is taking inventory. We have kind of an inventory.
Oh, yeah, yes,
We have an inventory, and I think most of them are, not all of them, but most of them.
correct, 58 or more.
Yeah, so we have gotten to that point, but now, move forward with plans to divest those and divest, if everyone wants to.
It definitely sounds like a good supporting action under, because this development management plan is kind of like, what are we gonna do? But that feels like a supporting action that would support that. Am I on the right level?
Or maybe a small tweak to the overall objective, which would be, what I'm hearing is get them off our books. So maybe develop a management plan to divest.
Yeah.
The CCSD lots.
And I'm
Yeah.
particularly thinking of lots that are sort of orphan lots that are not, like Fern Canyon. We have a lot of lots in a big clump, and that could be something that could be managed, that'd be a long-term management issue, opportunities. Along Highway 1, the same way there's a large area of CCSD on lots, kind of make a unit, but there are a lot of lots that are isolated. And very small ones too, and those could be going, we could just divest and hopefully make a lot less work.
So we don't change the overall objective, because you're not saying we're going to divest all 100% of the parcels. So it sounds like it's,
What we do need a supporting action though is that divestment.
yeah,
That's what I was thinking in particular.
it's the more of them we can take off the books. I think that's the point, right?
I think the blue objective is to put together a divestment plan.
So you want, rather than management plan,
Right.
okay. And then the supporting action, would you need, is, I would be, for every blue objective, we need some supporting action, right?
So an inventory, I think.
Well, the inventory, but then also, as
Yeah.
Mr. Hirsch was saying, find out what we can do.
Right,
The legalities are,
Right.
and then come back with a plan for, lot by lot, essentially, what you're gonna do with it, or we try to sell it, whatever.
so do you have that as an objective?
I changed develop a management plan for CCSD owned developed parcels to develop a management plan to divest the CCSD owned and developed parcels.
I think you
Is
check
that
out
your
the,
intent?
I think you check out the develop a management plan to divest CCSD on undeveloped parcels.
So that infers that the objective is to divest of all CCSD owner. That's what it says now. So.
Well, part of it is that you don't divest it. I think those decisions have to be made based on the inventory and the legal part of it.
So I don't think we have it quite right.
Okay. I mean, because Vice President Thomas, I think you're saying there's some that we may not want to get rid of.
Right, that's what he's
what I
saying.
heard.
The way it's worded, you get a feeling it's 100%. You almost need a word to evaluate those that could be divested. Part of that plan is.
So you've got that.
How about, and instead of a management plan, develop an evaluation plan
Right.
to divest CCSD,
Or
Parcels.
possible divestiture.
possible divestiture,
Yeah,
for possible divestiture of CCSD on parcels. How does that sound?
Look, what you're losing by. It sounds like there's a clear intent to divest. A large portion of them, and there's acknowledgement that there is a large portion that will retain. From Canyon, that's what I believe I heard.
yeah, well, there's certain
So
areas where they.
if you frame it purely as a divestment plan, we, I think, missed the boat. I think there's, the management plan, like, it's evaluation. What to keep, what to divest. We need,
The word in the potential, something that's a reasonable word like potential.
Potential divestment, because I think most of them we would probably want to divest. Even if they're in areas that are kind of clustered together, because if some private party wants to have one of those lots.
Yeah.
An easement, the contract easement on it, we'll say, go ahead, because, you know, it's,
So maybe it's an assessment of which, or just which parcels to divest.
I think we'd say, we'll have to see if there's demand, if which parcels can be divested.
Mhm.
Right. Maybe the thing that, yeah.
Well, I think a
Okay, so the
management
best-
plan includes all of those things. So if we leave it as a management plan, then we, underneath for supporting actions is, you know, for instance, the first thing would be to do a, what's it called? Assess, no. Inventory, to do an inventory. And then, look at legal. And then, at that point, bring it back to do some more supporting actions here, because that is gonna take a while to do those two things first. You'll find out if some of them are, conservancy lots. And then that would be something that legal would have to look at as far as what needs to happen.
Well, I think legal, if I'm correct, is gonna have to look at all of them, you know, because of the.
Oh, the other ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think all of them because of the statutes that have to be followed.
Just determining whether they do or don't fall.
Right. And there'll be financial implications to taking up Mr. Hirsch's, time
Right,
to do that.
exactly.
you know, there will be legal fees because that's not gonna be covered by her retainer.
So just leave the blue one as it was. And put some supporting actions under it.
So we almost could take some of that language and put it as a supporting action.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be good. Whether it's a development evaluation plan for possible divestiture
Yeah.
of CCSD on parcels underneath.
Some,
So,
what was that?
develop an evaluation plan for divestiture of some CCSD owned undeveloped parcels.
Do we already have? All of a list, all done and everything? of-
Yes, I have two separated lists. I have one that's with conservation easement only, and
Okay,
then I have one mix of everything.
okay,
So they're already all set up because due to the fact of the fire council.
Yeah.
When we were having a meeting with them, going over which ones are conservations.
yeah, and maybe the board could do it like an ad hoc for that. I- Can
I know Vice President Thomas has some more.
not,
Oh, the suggestion on board ad hoc. First question is, Mr. Aguirre, what help will you need? Because this doesn't sound easy. And so, you know, a board ad hoc could be a solution. If it's appropriate help from pros, because open space is in their scope. But it's kind of up to the board and what you feel is helpful primarily.
I think an ad hoc would be best, you know, because we're gonna be working close with legal.
Yeah.
You know, and so that ad hoc can meet with Mr. Hirsch and then we get a better grasp on it rather than. You know, pros isn't as tightly woven into what these decisions will be, which would be big decisions on.
Yeah,
You know,
and their motive is more, let's enhance recreational opportunities for this community. And this isn't really in that committee's wheelhouse.
Yeah, and I think what we've talked about in terms of what we're already trying to manage. Which is not a bad intent. Is that their motivation to enhance that phase of it, we've already established that we can't manage it
Right.
financially.
Right.
And so. What I hear from David is, you know, and even our conversations one-on-one, he's like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I mean, we left yesterday's meeting and he's got a laundry list saying, I don't know how to do this. You know, and so I think this may be a method to alleviate some of the strain on that department is, okay, let's evaluate how we can get some of that. Responsibility off of its plate by evaluating a divestiture plan for some of those parcels. You know,
Yeah.
Fern Canyon obviously is something that. I think we may want to keep under the purview of the CCSD. I don't even know how that would work if you got rid of some of those. Pieces of land in Fern Canyon, which obviously the community is pretty passionate about, because it's a nice area. an open space. So I don't think maybe that would be one we're looking to
Right.
divest, because I don't know what would happen, what people would do with it. But the rest, I think it's something to get it off the plate with the CCSD and to people that want to merge with that lot to have more open space at a relatively inexpensive cost. I think that would be a benefit to the district and places that we debate on then. You know, and if they're willing to do it, then it's a win for both parties.
So if you're looking for volunteers, I'm delighted to help, you know, if it's like helpful for you.
Yeah, and I think we'll figure out a way to put it on the agenda as a.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a, you know, request for an ad hoc to be established on this.
Yeah.
Is there any other supporting objectives?
Well, I have a
For
question,
this.
I have a question for
Well
Mr. Gary, just real quick. So, and I don't even, you're gonna probably tell me to be quiet. But
First off, I've never.
I don't like to throw money at things. So are you saying that you need to do an assessment of your staffing?
What it is.
I can help, I can help.
How to get them to stay?
So
Retention.
from a GM,
Retention.
from a GM perspective, I have issues with the budget because I want. In honesty, to pay his maintenance technicians more
Yes.
for the retention piece, because what I'm asking of them has never been asked of a maintenance technician. Since this department has been stood up. We have taken away almost all contracting. So homeless encampment cleanups, no one in this room would want to do a homeless encampment cleanup, but I'm asking David and his crews to do it. The weed abatement of all these undeveloped parcels, we would contract out, what, $60,000-$70,000 sometimes. To have that done, and then those crews used to just work on the ranch or do whatever else in the district. Now I'm asking David and his team to do that. So I think from a staff perspective and a GM perspective, I'm trying to figure out how I can maintain retention, but also not burn them out. And again, it goes back to the overall picture is they've got too many responsibilities with no funding and no support.
So how about putting that as one of the objectives?
Retention plan.
Yeah,
Sure.
I
mean,
For personnel, is that what? we're
Yeah.
doing?
yeah.
Wasn't that what you brought up
I brought that up
yesterday?
yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, and that was gonna be my comment. It's like, I don't know how to support that action without addressing the funding.
I guess the next core area, just, we're talking,
Yeah.
I don't know, jump ahead too much, we're talking about a lot of stuff that's underfunded. All, starting yesterday at 10 AM almost, we're talking about underfunded stuff, so yeah, maybe it's covered. In other words, maybe we should talk about that in that topic, just like with fire.
But I'm not. I'm being specific about his department.
Well, I'm not objecting to it, but as a mission-driven GM, I'm like, I want to complete that one. You know, and I don't know how I'm gonna complete it if you put it on there, in terms of fixing it. Does that make sense? So if it's phrased in the correct way,
Yeah.
where we're just doing an evaluation
Yeah.
of his staffing,
Yeah.
I'm all about it.
That's what I would recommend.
But to fix it would be a different.
Well, we have in the water department,
Mhm.
seek additional water resources, do we not? Easy?
Resources, though, that's not.
No, I
that's
mean,
not
like, we know how hard that's gonna be.
Yeah.
To bring in additional water resources, yet that's an objective.
Mhm.
Achievable, we don't know, but we've been working on that for ever. So. It doesn't have to be something that we can get done in a year. To be a worthy objective, and this is critical, Mr. Gary's lost a lot of folks, and, you look down that salary structure, you know, multiple steps, right, multiple steps. And then if you look at F&R, one line.
I
So,
think an evaluation is needed.
yeah,
Absolutely, and so Mr. Greer and I have talked about it. It's just one of those things where. From a GM perspective, I don't know how to fix it under our current funding model. I want it,
But
that's
the thing,
that's a potential solution. fix the funding model. I don't know how either.
But there is one thing, and that is that looking at two tiers of technicians or something is a lot less expensive than going out and contracting with people. So it's a less expensive way. I mean, even if we didn't have that, even, I don't think it would cost us that much more to do that, but anyway.
No, I'm with you.
If I can interject just for a second as well. So yesterday, when this conversation was with the fire department, we had talked about not putting that on there because we wanted to put it on the finance area
Right.
as far as a objective, but potentially objective on the
Retention.
finance, right, for retention. For salaries and all that. So I think if we're going to add that to FNRs, then I would like to go back and put that on the fire departments as well.
To me, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then within that administrative and finance, it's how do we work across the entire system to solve it?
And see, that's, I think generally
Fair enough.
where we can do it, but his department
Third Mars.
is really in need of somehow fixing everybody leaving. So I just, that's,
I would argue 100%, but I know where
Yeah.
it's going.
Yeah.
I know where it's going.
We have to be consistent.
Absolutely.
they
Yeah.
do. Well, I haven't heard that from you.
We talked about it a little bit in negotiations
Yeah.
about their concern for staff retention, because if they can take their skill set and go to a Paso Robles or
Yeah.
San Luis City, things like that. So I think that always exists, and I think it's the same story for Mr. Geary.
Well, present the annual turnover rate by department, and that will be, insightful. But we know that the annual
David's in
turnover
the
rate in FNR exceeds 100%. So we could have.
6, oh yeah, but I'm about to lose 3 more.
You're not competitive with salaries, this would happen, yeah. All right,
Yeah.
so both serious, FNR, it exceeds 100%. Fire department, it's not exceeding 100%, but it's
But
still.
as for his department, I see where there's a factor of emergency services. I mean, I love the fire department too from,
Yeah.
I come from the background of it also, but also on the same notion, I know when he has a job to do, they have a responsibility. I know with ours, if ours is quite restrained, but no, I mean, I agree, his is a little more in depth than mine.
I think retention, my 2 cents, retention could be holistically for the whole district under the amendment in finance. Because it really is money related and funding related. Facilities and resources, yes, the work maybe isn't, but that's what they're saying, that is what the position description is. So the work's gonna be what the work is. And so it's really about getting the salary structure up to comparable within the industry, which we did with fire a little bit this year. So I think maybe just putting retention, staff retention. And because that can encompass more than just finances too. It's, about the working environment, top down. Hey, I'm right up there with you. So it can encompass more than just the money. And I do think there should be some equity with how we deal with that within the whole CSD. So not having it just individual departments. Even though there's different problems, like Mr. Geary said, there's different reasons why people leave. We can look at it more holistically and equitably for all departments.
Yes. I like to second that point, as was said about the dealing with it. I holistically mean, we're talking about this is a budgeting process, how you allocate the resources we have every year. And that's when the various departments come and say, we need this much, and then Ms. Fritz and general manager have to sort of figure out, well, this is what we have, this is how we divide it up, this is pie. The revenue issue is how big the pie is going to be. That's what we're going to be doing next, and that makes everybody's, allocation bigger. But I think we're talking now. I agree. I think that anything to do with staffing, anything to do with resources, financial resources for staffing, whatever, should be kind of left to the budget process as allocation. We'll be talking in a minute or two about how possibly to make the revenue overall more. And solve some of these problems. That's what I do. So I would leave that out of the specific area, departmental objectives, then make it a broad objective. Global objective, yeah.
Put it in finance.
In finance, definitely.
Okay. What do you think, please?
Well, I said my 2 cents, so that's all that needs to happen. I'm sorry, I can't see this. So you did put moving the facilities.
But we haven't added that in there yet.
Yeah, I think that,
So relocation, reevaluation plan for relocating.
Well, I think the blue should be relocation of rodeo grounds
Right.
facilities.
right,
Then the first enabling step should be developing a plan and estimates,
Yeah.
engineering estimates, whatever, building a plan and estimates, and then the funding would come after that.
Before we move to new blue box, is there anything else we should be putting under the management plan for our undeveloped?
I can't see it. I think I'm fine there.
Good.
Wait, what, read the,
So we got the develop a management plan for the CCSD owned undeveloped parcels. The supporting action is develop an evaluation plan for the divestiture of some CCSD owned developed parcels. And that's the last supporting action we have.
once we get that. I think what I heard, one of us say is, then we'll know what the next steps are, right? And that's big.
So we're good with that. Okay.
So can I just quickly ask David a couple of questions for you, the FNR? So you were talking earlier about the street lights. I was, and you probably know about a member of the community that went out on this late Saturday night. It just did a small portion of Main Street. I found 8 streetlights that were out. So you're saying that we're responsible for 37 streetlights?
Yes, everything from Cambria Drive all the way down to Burton. There's 38 on the map, but there is some that are actually been hit by cars and were never replaced.
Right.
So that's where we are with those. Before the gentleman that came out last week, we had 13 that were out.
13.
So what he ended up finding was wiring and photocells that were out and a couple bulbs. So that's where this adjustment that I'm requesting from the board on the next agenda was in regards of having those all updated.
So are you going to contract somebody to do this, or you and your staff going to take care of it?
It would be contracted. We don't have the resources to do that kind of work, 14 feet in the air.
Right.
And rental wise and safety wise, it would be very limited to our department.
And I just want to mention one more thing. You were also talking about the eucalyptus.
Correct. I know that's a big concern that's been coming through with the fire with community in regards, because there is quite a bit of eucalyptus that we have along the Santa Rosa Creek. I know they're invasive. That's the biggest thing. I've been, multiple conversations in regards of that. And the willows that are all the way down, like I said, from Windsor all the way up, the Burton is our stretch on our side of the creek, except for over here next to Cambria, the little park over here off to the side. They're a factor in diluting that creek as it floods. That's something that's a big concern. They're on both sides of the creek. Once they turn around and jump over here next to the what's called the overflow to an island, and also on the other side. I mean, we do have deterioration in some of the bends that are down by V Station off the Santa Rosa Trail or Santa Rosa Road down there, because due to the fact of, the trees in general, has diverted the creek into the bank, and now we're losing part of the embankment, part of our road. So that's going to be another thing that we're going to have to turn around and look into with the coastal commission.
The reason I'm asking you is because I seem to recall, I believe it was right after the ranch was purchased, that the collective we went in and removed a lot of the eucalyptus, like I said, probably 20 to 25 years ago. but obviously we didn't get everything and replenishes is also.
Correct. So a lot of those trees were that windbreak that was there next to Burton and Dog Park. I've actually pulled up old maps to where it turned around, illustrated the abundance that was right there. But these are further into the East Ranch and also West Ranch.
That's kind of what I'm referring to, the West Ranch over where the creek is.
Yeah, so there is, you can tell there's some that's been removed, but there is several that are about almost 8 feet round, 8 to 10 feet. I mean, they've been there for years. And I know that is gonna be, I hate to say it, a pretty penny. Trying to have those eradicated out of there. And there is some that are, solid 3 feet round, which you already know those are over, 80 years old. Just the growth that they have in those. And that's along that riverbank, right there on the East Branch by the marsh.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I'd love to add to that, the volunteers with FFRP have removed hundreds, when I've been there, maybe even thousands of the eucalyptus saplings, because those things spread like wildfire. Bad choice of words. Apologies. But they really do, but the big ones, wow. So do we want an objective in the strategic plan to help you anchor this? What?
So we have to go through the Department of Wildlife and some other agencies to get within a certain distance from the creek to do anything. We have to have their approval, we have to have this, we can't just go in there and do this. So I think one of the first things we need to do is to contact the agencies to see what we can and cannot do with all of these eucalyptus along the creek and how close to the creek we could get, because I dealt with this before with another agency another place where I was the board president, and we had issues with flooding and washing out the culverts that went under our roads. And we had to have someone from Fish and Wildlife stand over top of us and say, you can't touch that, it's habitat, you can't touch that, you can't touch that. So they do have regulations about what you can do within the creek bed and for a distance of the bank. So I think the first step is to check with the regulatory agencies to see what we can do without getting them involved.
That would be the first supporting action under some objectives. So that's an action, not an objective.
That's what I'm saying.
Cause I know about 2 years ago when they ended up doing San Simeon out there, I know that was for the Eagle Creek there. We had the one that,
Gordon.
yeah, Gordon, that's the one that was kicked off when I first came on. And once I started looking numbers at that and seeing what they had to go through, that's where I was like, wow, and we have almost a mile long stretch. So, and you're talking about hundreds of yards over there, this is miles. And that's why I'm like, it's gonna be well beyond anything that.
Is the objective something like removal of invasive eucalyptus and willows from the CCSD property in the Creek Basin? Or what would the objective be?
I think the objective is to somehow make the stream be able to run.
Flood control,
Flood
environmental, the environmental threat in that creek.
Yeah, because removing trees, they're gonna just keep coming back whenever. I don't know.
And the question is, how critical is this?
Yeah, exactly.
How critical is this compared to other things?
Because you don't want to have so many objectives that you can't get anything done.
See, and that's where I'm at, because this has been an environmental threat, literally,
Yeah,
in that aspect. I'm threatened every time we hear rain.
yeah,
So I think of this and also
Yeah.
think of our yard.
Yeah.
Those are the two things, blood pressure goes through the roof.
So solving this would make your life easier, would reduce.
If we ended up relocating the facility,
Yeah.
that relieves some of the stress, but then now we're throwing it right back onto the community. In that aspect, and also with us at a, long-term plan for that.
This has come up at R&I, obviously, and, we had discussed about reaching out to the flood control district, some of these other agencies on working with them to see when they might be helping to be able to come in and help us mitigate that piece of it. I'm concerned about adding that currently as a goal to remove the trees, because we're just adding more
Yeah.
objectives that, going back to the funding and staffing. Would be almost, it would be an objective that would be here in a year and two, in my opinion, a year and 2 years in. And trying to figure out, what our responsibility is in terms of what's on our property versus what the flood control district and those other regulatory agencies have a role in, because it's close to the creek. And maybe Mr. Hirsch has some input. I know Tim is talking about it. Wish I could regurgitate everything that Tim said, but.
Have anything great to add?
Okay.
So after this was brought up at R&I, and we made the comment that we don't want the bandwidth to do this, and suggested we bring it to flood control. Utilities manager Green 2 days later did bring it to flood control, and I think they're looking at it. But what I was told, and I can't remember who I talked to now, was that the flooding was the cause of the heavy storm and all the water that was flowing down the hillsides, inundating the creek. It wasn't necessarily those trees growing in there. I mean, it flowed enough that it practically overflowed the Winter Street Bridge. So obviously it was the volume of water, not necessarily those trees.
Correct.
So, and the same thing with the flooding of the West Village. I talked to our utility staff about that pipe that takes the water that was put in back in 2009, it takes the water from by Sheffield and gets it over there. The two aren't tied together. The creek bypasses that, and that's a separate thing. It doesn't flood the mobile home park or anything up that way. But the flooding in the West Village, I was told, was also from all of the water just coming down the hillsides from the volume of rain that was coming down. So 2 areas flooding are from, from that, but the one in the West Village has nothing to do with those trees. And it would have flooded with or without those trees there.
But I also don't want to, at the same time. I don't want to discount Mr. Gary's concerns, I'm just trying to figure out what you're capable of.
I think, I know our department has the bandwidth, there's nothing we can do.
I think sticking with the relocation. Was an example of our department, it's the immediate, I think that's it's a big goal, I mean, it's a big ambitious goal, but that would solve, flood threat. To us, to our facility, which I think is what we have to kind of focus on at this point, because Director Dean was saying, there's a lot of different things causing the flooding downstream.
Correct.
From the park.
I think should I cut you off?
So are you good with what we have underneath your area?
Yes.
Okay,
And I'm just throwing things out there that I've observed in a year and a half that I've been here. Literally, it's been mentioned, boots on the ground. Getting the hands dirty and going through it and seeing where we are and, observing, what's a priority to me. So that's where a lot of this is. And I know somebody looking in would have different priorities, some of that nature, but this is from, the tailgate meetings that I have with my guys and also with myself, and then talking to McLean in regard to all this. But I just want to throw that out there. I mean, this is what I've seen and this is what I've come across.
And I'll continue to work with Mr. Gary and the flood control district, and we'll tie in Mr. Green, and try to figure out what we can do from those regulatory agency standpoint, and then we'll continue to evaluate the tree situation, else, its effect on our banks and roads and things like that. But I think Director Gray's point is maybe we focus on the relocation to solve the immediate threat, and then we'll be back here in a short while.
we'll be back in a year.
President Scott, I just wanted to revisit a couple of other items that Mr. Gary brought up.
Okay,
Okay. It's speaking from the heart about the issues that really are concerning. We heard about the restrooms, serious repair needs for the restrooms. Not going to get done if it's not an objective.
I'm not opposed to putting it on there, I think, as well. We'll just have to figure it out.
Grant possibilities. You know, the visitors around town, there's,
Well, I would think the tourism board
Yeah.
would be a natural for that.
Yeah.
Hitting them up because it's mainly for tourists.
but they're gonna say, well, it's not even an objective in your plan.
Well.
Well,
So we put it on, I mean, it does need to be on there, I mean.
Okay.
Put it on the plan and then have supporting. Supporting action, seek funding,
Resources, yeah.
things outside of our normal strength, in other words. Tourism board or grants.
So we have this one as an objective. I think we need to add a couple of supporting actions for the relocation. Or no,
No, you're talking about the restrooms now.
well, I know, I just didn't want to move on to the rest
Oh.
until we mail out our
So
supporting
what I
actions.
heard was, Director Gray said something about an engineering.
Oh, I mean,
Okay,
initial
that's-
engineering plans, then I think, we have execution, funding. Funding and execution, I guess, would be the second one.
So,
Yeah. Generally there's this phase of, you lay out the plan, you get it developed, get the price tag. Then you get the funding and then execution at the second stage.
So obtain engineering estimates. And then funding.
Yeah.
Two separate lines.
And it's been sitting on our CIP list for
Yeah.
ages and ages.
Separate
It's out there, taking, and move forward with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to be honest with what Mr. Green, the utility side did with the bathroom that came through. It's an eye opener. In comparison.
so did you add another objective about the restrooms?
Yeah, hold on, we're trying formatting. Looks like I can only add so many lines before it makes me accept the. Like I can't insert it on.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
I
we
have
need
to
to not put too much in there. We're gonna revisit this in a year. We've heard everything that you've said, but I don't want you to get overwhelmed by looking at your part of the strategic plan. I mean, what are we looking at? Safety, number one, safety. That's relocating the facilities. So, I don't know,
So I would be not,
because she can't put another
I
line.
can, it's not gonna look pretty right now, and I'll just have to do it later.
yeah, I don't get the answer of formatting difficulties.
No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I'm just saying,
You got 10 lines. that's it.
you're gonna get too much there and you're gonna go, oh my God, where do I start?
You
So,
know, and that's the thing, it's just putting it out there.
yeah,
I haven't seen any of those stuff. Listed, it's always been, conversations. And by putting it on here, it's out in the public, it's out.
Sure, we can
It's on
put
paper.
it out for a year. We can have a date of 26, 27.
even if there's no actions.
Right, but it's been brought up.
Oh,
So these are 3-year or 5-year objectives?
5-year.
I think as we go into the finance, is just put it up here, it will evolve
yeah,
into the 5 or 7 year plan. If you could just identify what we need to do now. It will evolve the 3 years, 5 years, 7 or 10. But the main thing is what, like you're doing today, is identify what needs to be done. What's a problem that we need to fix in the next few years? You got
And-
short term and long
so
term.
not even put actions yet,
Right.
just put.
You got short term, long term, you can come back and define the time period and the dates later. But the main thing is they need to know what to fix
Correct.
and go out and get the money for it. They're gonna prioritize it. That's all we're trying to do.
Voice of strategic planning experience.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. On to finance.
Yeah,
So we don't want to put the restrooms on there right now.
just put restrooms,
Restrooms there.
just put restrooms.
And I mean, look at the trees there. You might not.
We don't know exactly, we don't know exactly what needs to be done with
Yeah.
trees. It's clear that we can't.
I'm sorry, but upgrades, remodel, or repairs to the restroom.
What's that?
Remodeling.
Yeah.
So along with the movement of the rodeo grounds in water, did we have relocation of the pumps?
We were, Oh, it is not on there. The
I
pump.
was wondering if we should add that to water, because that's kind of a double.
Yeah.
Right.
I think,
Package,
yeah,
yeah,
With water.
we can't move one with the other, I mean, we shouldn't.
We want to add it under FNR or move it up to water too?
move it up to water, but don't do
Just
it right
water.
now. Just write it down.
Well, because we
I'd
have
rather
to
just
do
do
it
it
now,
now.
because I might leave my note.
Okay, I was gonna say, we have a really in-depth conversation now for my place.
Okay, what was it?
The water pumps, or do you know this?
Gloria Brown's lift station. Gloria Brown's.
Station.
Yeah.
No, that'll be the objective. And, when we meet the staff. we can tighten it up.
Okay.
All right, are we
Yeah.
capital finance?
No, administration.
And finance.
Admin and administration finance, what's this?
So you
Goal?
the thoughts on do it by core areas or just do it by facilities? I'm not sure.
I-
What would help you? I guess
Yeah,
maybe
my
from a
idea
finance-
is getting back to pie.
Right,
The overall revenue model, revenue, especially revenue. I can talk a little bit about this, but my thoughts on it. We're talking about basically two major revenue models. Enterprise fund and general fund, quite different in the way to get their revenue. And I think there's like two major areas where we can state goals, I think, for enhancing revenue. You know, does anyone here think we have enough money?
Negative.
So I guess, you know, I'll talk, you know, if you want, I can talk for a few minutes, because I've had some thoughts on this in my 3 years as finance chair. We'll just give a little history of where we are with this. At the very start of my time in the finance committee, there was an objective actually, that was a plan to find, you know, deal with the problem of inadequate revenue in the general fund. Especially, and I think we took several passes at it. When in 2021, I think it was, we came up with a report saying that we didn't have enough revenue to meet the needs of the general fund farm, you know, the fire, FNR and all that. And there's a report done on the committee, it didn't amount to any didn't lead to any action. We were trying, as a result, one result of that is we set the ad hoc committee for the veterans, the vets hall, to try to figure out ways to finance improvements or to get more money out of it, you know, going back into the vets hall. And that turned into sort of you know, exploration of a 501c3. Dick, you were in on that, you know, you remember that, that's from 2022. And Victor Farmer and I were the chairs of that. Well, that kind of petered out. Then we came back with another mission in finance to look at revenue enhancement. This is for general fund. We had a ad hoc committee, and then, you know, Ms. Briskin, you know, knows the history of this, that came back with several proposals for including investigating incorporation, but also possibly having benefit assessment for I think recreation or fire recreation, I think. That also resulted in a small, you know, a small step, which is important, but it wasn't really very comprehensive about trying to more, you know, advantageously divvy up the responsibilities for ranch maintenance, which we worked on, and that was Director Thomas and I think, working with Matt and David. All these things, kind of these grand, you know, these grand plans to sort of fix our revenue model, kind of ended up with these not bad steps, but very minor ones, like the mountain laboring to produce a mouse, you know, as the saying goes. I think we do have to look at the model in both cases. And the model in enterprise it's a, water, based entirely on water sales. We are in a no growth situation. It will be for let's say maybe 2 or 3 more years, 4 more years. We have to think of something there to change the model or to improve the model. We have a model on general fund, which is all based on property tax with small amount of little bits of money from the franchise fee, which doesn't amount to much. And we have F&R and fire that are, I think that are underfunded long term, especially. I think we have to revisit the models, model ideas that came up, and I think we have to revisit incorporation. I know it's a very unpopular idea around this table, but the more I think about it, the more we can't really avoid that issue about how to get more revenue sources. Because the thing about being an incorporated entity, what you call a town and a city, you have access to a much larger tax base, and especially in our case, we are a very robust tourist economy, which, and I'll digress a little bit. A few months ago, I did a PRA request for the county just to get numbers on how much transient occupancy tax, we're not talking about sales tax, transient occupancy tax is generated in Cambria. And through the various, taxes they have, one is for general fund, one is for promotion of tourism. The grand total is something like close to $6 million a year from Cambria. Now, are we getting that back in services from the county? I don't think so. And we are generating, and that's money. You see, that's money that a city or a town can have. We can get that. Obviously, we'd have to go through the process of divesting from, separating from the county, negotiating a settlement, but it's not, and we can also raise those taxes too if we have to. We have to somehow look at different revenue model, revenue sources that are big, that are not, we're not doing debate sales, and we have to talk about a couple $1 million more than we're getting.
Karen's offended.
Karen, keep it bake sales on
Yeah,
scale.
might make it.
Based on those cookies yesterday.
We might-
It's not gonna bring enough revenue.
We
Close
could
that
get
gap.
big sales. Karen space in Tin City, right next to Lynn's Pies. You just find out cookies there. You can pretty well. Anyway, all kidding aside, I think okay, I think on the general fund side, the model, the property tax model is inadequate. We just have to, and I do not want to go to the public and say, okay, let's have another parcel tax. Let's have a, parcel tax. And that's the only alternative that is special district has is parcel tax, which is one, really hard to pass to get you a 2/3 vote. Two, I think very inequitable because every parcel pays the same. Whether it's, you got a $5 million house on it or you got a $250,000 house on it. And it's, as I said, it's a heavy lift just to get passed. We may have to do it anyway for, I don't want to talk about, fire department. Chief Perkins has been very eloquent about the problems operationally not being funded. But we're also talking about fire evacuation and we've been talking about an evacuation route. We did an engineering study of that one to Harmony Ranch Road. It's about just a basic 1-lane gravel road. It's probably a $3 million proposition. We don't have the money for that now. Anything really. So I think we have to at least consider that. And then on the enterprise fund side, it's a little trickier because we could go back to that discussion we had about working with the county and getting the San Simeon effluent to treat. That would be a revenue source, for instance. On the line, that is also supplemental water source, which could, and this is going to be very controversial, but could enable us to open the wait list And just so everybody knows, whatever we think about new water connections, you gotta remember, we have water capacity fees, which actually could be upgraded. They're 12 years old now, and there's some inflation. Every new EDU that we sign on pays 12,688 for water, and either 9,330 or 7,161 for sewer. So it's either like $19,000 or $22,000 every EDU. So if we had like 10 EDUs, that's about $200,000. If we just did the existing commitments list, which is like 38, almost $1 million in water and sewer. So that's a lot of money. So I'm saying this is where we are with.
No, just, but you're talking about the dollar amounts for connecting water and sewer, but I do believe we are getting that studied and reevaluated.
Right.
Because those are old.
Well, I'm saying that
Yeah.
they are old and they probably would be raised just because of inflation.
Yeah, so we have Alexander looking at our fee update. We're getting closer to finishing that.
Yeah.
And I'll be as agnostic, because we all know this is a difficult conversation, especially when we talk about corporations. I'll be as agnostic as I can towards that, because it could be the end of my job, right? Because if you think about it, we're talking about a city manager, a mayor,
We don't
city
need-
council,
You don't need a mayor, you just have a city council.
city council.
City council, you don't need elected mayor.
And responsibility for maintaining the roads, which requires us buying
Well-
road equipment.
And the police department.
And the police.
Well, no, yeah, we're not getting the details of, I want to, we should have the discussion after, but I think.
Well, my point was,
Yeah.
is that at some point, do we answer that question by paying for the study? You know, I've had conversations with LAFCO, and anecdotally, you know, they looked at me like,
Yeah.
you know, really small, and in terms of your population, and we think it may not pencil out, but you know, if the board wanted to put it as an objective and really discuss whether or not we should take those monies out of general fund reserves to look at incorporation to, I don't know, to put this to bed, we would do it.
Yeah, and if you don't have, if it puts it to bed, and I don't know, the other thing I'm thinking about though, and everybody's right about the additional responsibilities, because if, that $6 million goes to those things. Most small cities don't have their own police departments, they just contract with the sheriff, first of all, and we would, and there's things that, you know, like look at Buellton's a little smaller than we are, they incorporated sort of after Prop 13, so they probably have a similar situation. It is done by smaller cities. There are like 65 cities that are smaller than us in California. So I mean, you know, obviously, I think it needs to be investigated. I think it needs to be looked at, because if we find out that the study that we cannot do it, remember, we could also raise the bed tax if we become a city. Then fine, we'll have to just, you know, figure out what to divest and if we have to divest stuff. But for now, I think, for instance, we can't have a situation where we're talking about parks and recreation. And we don't have the money for parks and recreation, period. Any of it. Because it has to go first to fire and facility and resources, because they're underfunded. We have to stop talking about, you know, planning for a park and stuff like that if we don't have the money for it. We have to figure out some way, if we're gonna have that program. That's why I was kind of adamant about the mission statement, not having it there, because we don't have funding for it. So why are we declaring it a mission? If we want to have it as a mission, we have to find a different model for getting our revenue. And I don't know if there's anything else out there that's available except at least looking at incorporation. I'll start with that.
So it's gonna cost what, $90,000 to $100,000 to investigate incorporation?
It depends.
90 to 100,
Yeah.
200, depending on
Yeah, it's less.
what.
Yeah.
And that's something that would have to come out of the general fund?
I mean, if we're really gonna look at the funding model and our finances holistically, we have to look at how we're gonna fix it to Rep. Gray's point. You know, do we look at incorporation? Do we look at benefits assessments? Prop 218s for our water and sewer issues? I mean, those really, you know, when I did the blast out on CSD 101, basically saying, here are options to fix our revenue issues, and it's basically this. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I guess from a board perspective, if you want to really start tackling administration and finance on how we're going to be able to continue to fund a district that is in a no growth position and has been for 20 years. I guess the discussion has to be had on which direction you want to take.
It
So-
probably needs to have some kind of objective of creating or looking at different models and creating a model.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that revenue issues for public agencies, whether it's cities or special districts, is difficult in California. But because of, Prop 218, Prop 26, when you mention bed tax for a city, it's a general tax as opposed to a special tax. It still has to go to the voters and it needs a 50%.
Corporation would have to, I assume.
Then you talk about, I've heard several references to assessment districts. Assessment districts generally are based upon some statutory scheme that allows you to do it, but it's also subject to one of the other provisions of Prop 218. And it requires a certain kind of election process, weighted ballots. They structured it in a way that makes it difficult to do an assessment district. It has to be based upon special benefit to the parcels that are being assessed. Can't be a general assessment. So there are a lot of nuances to doing those things. And certainly it should be studied.
And then one more thought on going back to, on the enterprise fund side, Prop 218, that can always raise water rates. But two things we have to be careful about there, I think. One is it's painful for people. Water is really expensive now. And if you're just a small user, you still pay a lot. And that's again, a question of whether people who are really struggling should be hit with another big increase for water use. And the other is, people know how to cut back on water use. They've learned a lot. They learned a lot back in 2014. They can do things like just use less water. What that means is we get less money. So there's a sort of diminishing returns as you raise water rates. This doesn't go up. Your revenue just doesn't go up with the rate. It kind of levels off, and you have to be careful not to get too high because they're just going to have people, they're going to buy more water from Clyde Warren for their landscaping and things like that.
So if we're gonna talk about possibility of connection fees, we need to finish that study with Bartles and Red Wells. And yeah, I know I said that, but we also, and see if there's a possibility of a buy-in towards our utility cost. Okay, but we also need to get a permit for the WRF and see how we could use it.
I'm trying.
I know,
It's on there.
I know, but we need to get that permit before we start seeing if we can fulfill the pre-existing commitments. Because we've got what, 30 something of those?
38.
Yeah, 30 of those. And that would be the place to start if we were gonna do connection, but we need to know the connection fees. We need to get the permit for the WRF, and we need to be able to see how it works and whether it could sustain additional connections in a situation of a drought.
Yeah, I want to be careful when we say that, because I don't want to speak out of both sides of our mouth when we talked about kind of what we put the project description and the WRF. And I know we put existing commitments in there, but like to what you said, we have to make sure that it can be sustained.
Yeah.
And there's some that would argue that since we're operating under our acre foot per year allocation and we're around 500, that we have the water now to open those 38 spots. I almost feel like it's almost a different conversation that we're looking at it from a 5-year long range look on how we fix our funding. And yeah, the connection fees and opening the wait list could be a piece of that. But when we look at this and setting objectives, are we looking at all our different possibility ways or all of our different ways to possibly address revenue functions? Does that make sense?
But if I can go back to what you just said about we're only using 500 and something acre feet of our 799, don't forget that 200 acre feet of Clyde Warren's is encumbered out of that 7.
Oh, I understand 100%. I'm saying what they're saying. You know, what the waitlist folks would say, or the existing commitment folks would say,
I do think it's fairly clear, and Mr. Hirsch can help on this, on the moratorium. Does say we need a new source of water. Like, I mean, actually arguably, if we got water from, wastewater from San Simeon to process through the ARTP, that would be sort of a new source, but if it's from the aquifer we have now, it's probably not considered a new source. So legally, I think I don't know, I mean, that's a tricky question for moratorium. I don't want to get into this water thing, but I think sticking to revenue, we should have at least the San Simeon angle as part of potential revenue source for our the sewer. That would be particularly for the wastewater fund.
Yeah,
That's one of the elements.
I agree with Director Gray. I think the San Simeon situation, as unpopular as it might be, is a way to begin maybe looking at extra revenue. And what can we, the art of the deal, what can we get in response to that?
And for the county.
Because what Mr. Green says is that we have the infrastructure to support that.
So the objective
It would be
here would
helpful
be,
if you get the council.
I'm sorry, yeah,
I mean, so what I'm hearing, which is now more of a direction the board is setting.
Yeah.
That we haven't talked with them about it, and now if we put that on there. You're telling me to talk to them.
it sounds like the objective would be assessment of the potential opportunity for utilization of processing San Simeon wastewater.
But I'm with you. I just think that means we're opening the door to talk to the county and
I think.
and start broaching that subject, which before. With public comment,
And you've already said it's coming,
I know it's
Yeah.
coming, and if that's the direction,
and let's not pretend
Mr.
it's
Green,
not.
Yeah.
put it out there.
no, I think it.
Mr. Green and I would be happy to start opening that door with the county. I just didn't want to make that move. After saying we haven't really had the discussion, it's.
We have the discussion now.
I think public criticism comes here,
That's-
and we will get hammered.
Yeah, we will.
So if I can bring up something, excuse me, if I'm interrupting you.
No.
Go ahead.
I seem to recall this is a few years ago and we were talking about how much would it cost to cost the building of the pipeline to take this, take sewage from San Simeon. And at that time, he said $1 million a mile. It's probably more than that. Now you're talking about, well, maybe we can get the county to help fund that. But what if that doesn't happen? And I know that old saying, you have to spend money to make money. But the idea of spending maybe $3 million and who knows how long it would take to build a pipeline to get a sewage from like 500 people maximum. It doesn't sound like a practical idea to me, but that's just me.
But just want to comment, but we've observed our general manager negotiating tough issues quite successfully. We know that San Simeon CSD dissolves, the county is responsible. We have a hunch that they really don't want that responsibility. That's going into this negotiation, we make our assessment. How much is this gonna cost the county? Because we know this is gonna, they don't want to do it. And so if the county wants to unload that responsibility on us, which is gonna save them a load of money, we don't do it for free.
Yeah, I can add into that, because the county's put in an RFP. Or it opened and closed already for an assessment of their entire district, which I'm assuming is revenue, property taxes, everything. To try and assess it to see what impact it would have on the county. That'll be public record. I'm not sure where that is in terms of its completion. Obviously, it's gonna take their consultant a while to do that. We would have access to that. And we could open the door with the county to discuss that and what our role or potential role in that could be and what some of the kids, obviously working this is Fritz, because we'd be looking at all the financials for that piece, which I'm assuming would be in that RFP and the consultant's findings. To Director Farmer's point, there's an opportunity for what we have to do with that wastewater and effluent line, which we're already kind of opening up. That there could be some opportunity costs. What was it? Was it opportunity costs that Mr. Arthur?
Conflict, we would be resolving an existing conflict. So that's the conflict resolution. That's it,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Director Dean and I, I'm gonna talk about that because we were at this visit, tour of the WRF with the Coast Commission staff people. And, they brought up, and guess the point about San Simeon or county wanting, not wanting to be saddled with a huge liability. Coastal Commission has ordered San Simeon to relocate their water treatment plant, from a current location. And that means putting it, building a new water treatment plant somewhere. And there's really no place to put it in San Simeon, but it's also really expensive. I don't know what it would have, I don't have numbers on it, 25 million maybe, probably. So what we would offer the county, among other things is say, if the county paid, put this pipeline in for the FA work, hook up with our system for a fraction of what it would cost for them to build a sewer plant, a treatment plant. I would think they would be very fair to that. That is where Coastal Commission people actually suggested that. They suggested that, he said, what about the San Simeon water? I was thinking, what they meant was the water that is treatable, wastewater from San Simeon, because we have AWT that can treat it now. And some, do some tertiary treatment. So we have that ability now to take their water and turn it into potable water and inject it wherever. So that's the conflict resolution from this, the Coastal Commission's point of view. They know that the way things stand now, it's very difficult to get at compliance with their order for that wastewater plant. This would solve that problem for them. And they would allow us to have our WRF where it is now as the means to that.
Right.
And that's the conflict resolution.
Right.
And they brought that up as a
I like
conflict resolution.
You like it?
I
We
like
did
it.
talk at RNI.
Part of the deal.
Somebody brought it up as to whether we could go ahead and drop the pipe in the trench.
Yeah.
We just had it open.
Get it used to.
For our transmission lines. And that situation is gonna depend on what we find with the geological survey and where the utilities are and if they're in room, but. If we take their wastewater and we treat it and we put it through the WRF and we put it, inject it like we do. Does that actually increase our $7.99 because we're putting it into our aquifer and we're pumping it out of our wells? And our $7.99 is based on what we pump out of the well. So is that a new supply of water or not?
It's from another aquifer.
Yes.
But we're putting it into
I know.
our aquifer and pumping it.
Yeah,
So I think from the
Somewhere else into the aquifer. Sounds like it, yes.
I think the Coastal Commission would argue with us, but then that's my gut.
Yeah.
Of course, but then there's potential for changing our diversion permit for off-stream storage. However, I don't know, but I don't really know the answer if they would consider that new water. It's definitely new revenue. And we could look at what we could do to argue that that's new water. I know our aquifers are shallow. So if we're able to do that year round and re-inject it with the WRF permitted during the dry season and keep that aquifer healthy year round because we've got this extra water coming in, then there's an argument to be had on increasing our acre foot allocation per year.
The engineering and science is in favor of your argument.
Yeah. So I think it's something we definitely can look at
So
and
do we want to put this on there as a goal to research the possibility of?
I think,
I would like to.
yeah, I think it helps because it was my earlier point on finding a new source of water and I wanted to throw that in there and then kind of had an overarching, but this would be more direct saying that this is an opportunity.
Just a little point of information too, I think Dr. Farmer was saying that was the sewage, the effluent was from just the town of San Simeon. It's also the visitor center for the Hearst Castle, which is a big producer of wastewater, and Old San Simeon too, apparently. That all comes down to that treatment plant. It's about 75,000 gallons a day on average. It's a fair amount.
And maybe I'm overreaching in terms of what the Hearst Castle would have as a part of this, but I know there's some workings about this. Dissolution of San Simeon and its impact on Hearst Castle.
Right.
So I don't know if there's monies to be had there from Hearst Castle, because they still need that.
They need
They need
treatment
this?
for their waste. They need it, so.
So I don't know what,
I think the opportunities are worth looking into.
The state.
with that. I imagine we want to look at all opportunities, not just treating the water, and I'm not saying this is the direction you want to go, but.
Yeah.
What about all services within San Simeon? I mean, if we're gonna go this direction, it should be looked at holistically and say, could we actually. Basically merge with San Simeon,
Due diligence.
so look at the whole package, because if there's opportunity, if we're really looking at this for. We're just looking at the water for the revenue piece and potential additional water. For us, we also should look at the additional property taxes for. For everything.
And I don't know what the bed tax situation is there, but this is a big piece for the bed tax.
That would be taking on their roads too, because they're responsible for their roads. So you're talking about possibly absorbing the whole town of San Simeon and. Okay.
Just the evaluation of it.
I think counties are still responsible for those.
Right, it's laughable.
We could, and again, we would, so we'd look at LAFCO, we'd look at everything, but we.
We would not take the roads.
Not unless, yeah,
No way on this wing.
I think, but you're right, you might do the full picture.
Or at least investigate everything.
So LAFCO says that San Simeon is responsible for road maintenance, water, sewer, street lighting, and weed abatement.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, road maintenance.
Yeah. LAFCO says
Okay.
that San
That's
Simeon.
good, understand correctly.
So do we have this?
We haven't typed it yet.
Yep.
So once we do, oh boy.
Can you get that on there? We have 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Explore.
Explore.
The
The possibility.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would just say the opportunity related to San Simeon CSD or solution, yeah. Explore the opportunity related to San Simeon CSD dissolution.
My computer goes really slow, so I can't type fast, because it's not sure. For the opportunity.
Opportunities.
Explore the opportunities.
Related to the dissolution of the San Simeon CSD. I don't think you need to say more than that, do you?
And then supporting actions, contact
Contact the county.
the county of San Francisco, LAFCO.
I think county first, the county first, yeah.
Yeah.
I think somebody, sometimes. Is this gets back to the issue, appropriation issue too, that might be. The county may give us a break on, if we negotiate something with the county. You could go to LAFCO with something too. Just like with this one, with San Simeon, so I think we go to the county first.
We'll take off LAFCO.
LAFCO ultimately gives it, I guess, its blessing.
Well, I would just say, to contact the agencies.
Yeah.
The,
You don't need to be, yeah. you
yeah,
don't need to be
whatever
that
agencies.
specific.
Just contact the agencies and contact.
The
Or
agencies
appropriate,
involved or appropriate agencies. I mean, this is gonna be,
All the heavy hitters.
I mean, it's huge, but. I mean, I don't know, that's what this objective or this core. Yeah, is really about looking at what else we can do.
Well, these are the tough discussions.
Yeah.
That have to be had,
Right.
If we're going to address the financial
Right.
issues.
Talking about revenue generation, that's what, Director Frey was saying, this is very limited options, this
Right.
is one.
This
There's
is,
also, incorporation, which
Right.
is equally as unpopular probably, and then there's, benefit assessments,
Mhm.
which means just learning the current. You know, the
Cambrians.
Cambrians.
Yeah, and just tap
And,
in taxes.
you know, so there's very little, you know, the growth is not going to happen, you know, this time it's not gonna grow, we don't have new. Homes being built, or, I mean, so there's very little.
Well, and then-
Or it's take what we have.
Yeah.
And then scale our expectations with the money that we have, which means that a lot of these things that we were talking about wouldn't happen.
I think the other thing you need to put in there is to make sure that, because I've heard about this fee study for a year.
Oh, Bartles and James.
Yeah, that needs to get done. Sorry.
Yeah, we have a couple emails out,
Out there.
Tilly staff and the last of the documentation, so I'll provide you an update as soon
Okay,
as possible.
yeah, that needs to happen, like,
We need to take a break.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
okay, 5 minutes. Come back at 11:41.
6 seconds.
Are we back on?
Yep.
Okay,
So we,
so we're back after our break.
have we got that one nailed, written down?
Well, there's one other one that we have to look at, retention.
Well, there may be more than one more, but.
Well, it's sure, but,
Well,
that.
before we leave this subject though,
Oh,
I just want to reflect on what Director Farmer brought up yesterday. I think he reminded me, he caused us to put the objective of updating the water conservation plan back on the water core area. And I was reflecting at the time and also overnight, like, and this may be unrealistic, but the thought is, if we know our water utilization rate, the draw rate is less than it was per person sometime in the past. And if there's a world where we have fundamentally shifted the demand footprint, the whatever statistical analysis you want of the standard deviation of what we consume as a community. That may reset the demand. And we've been talking about supplementing water resources. This is the other side of it. Just want to throw it out there, if that's fits into this conversation in any way.
I don't know what you're asking.
From the financial aspect.
I'm not sure, I don't see financial connection specifically.
Yeah,
I can see.
To Director Gray's point, there is a financial impact when we conserve so much water and you're not getting revenues, and it sounds almost counterintuitive to say, we want you to use water so we can get more revenue.
That's the irony of the whole.
Demonstrably, if our demand rate is demonstrably less than whatever assumptions went into the coastal commission's assessment that we don't have sufficient water supply. If the demand that was the basis for that assessment is reduced, doesn't that assessment change?
Well, that's kind of
That's my point.
that's what the law owners say.
I know,
That's their argument.
yeah,
And it's a tricky one because.
It is a tricky one, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
we haven't talked about it.
no pun intended, I don't know if it would hold water with the coastal commission. But it's something that I'm sure that the law owners have brought up in terms of, one specific one that talks to us quite a bit, would say, is it a discussion? Their position is a discussion, at least 30 to 40 to 50 houses, based on our current usage and our acre foot allocation, minus the 255 for Warren, is there room for that? I think that's a position they would take. I don't know from a CCFD perspective if it would be something that we can hang our hats on, so to say.
I don't think
It's something that we discussed.
I don't think it's in finance though, in finance administration, I think it's, I don't think it's goal. I don't think we have it fits into the strategic goal framework actually, but this is something that's gonna, it's
I'm sure it'll be a discussion when we get to the appeal.
Yeah.
Portion.
Yeah.
yes.
So don't we owe the existing commitments first before opening the way?
yes.
Yeah.
That's what we
So
said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Before we open the wait list, we have the existing commitments. That's what
Yes.
our project description says.
Right.
I think would be something of it. Yes.
And if we do that, you described quite articulately the revenue we'll receive.
Yeah.
If we're able to do that, and that was my point, that it could be an alternative. That's all my own.
You see it, I don't, I'm reluctant to put that up there as a as a goal.
It's a third rail.
Yeah, I do think we should talk about the general fund. The general fund revenue issue here too, though, and have something for there. I think what Matt was saying about Mr. McElhenney was saying about the, investigating, you know, the revenue models or new revenue models for the general fund, including, you know, incorporation benefit assessments, taxes. I mean, it's a good way to start. It just is that, you know, really do the due diligence in all of this, including incorporation.
I would look at all of them. I get the feeling that that's a discussion that the five of you need to have, because I feel like there's differing opinions on how you want to move forward with that.
Yeah.
So I think I would encourage, as always, you put it on there, we're gonna start marching to work on that. But I think it would have to be a discussion amongst the five on whether or not we're gonna put that word up there.
Well, I just maybe, and I'll just put out that, don't have the wording, just have, investigate, improvement of revenue model for the general fund.
Leave it at that.
But if the implication is incorporation, at some point I have to bring forward, and I would feel more comfortable from a staff level if we call it out, because if I bring forward a staff report saying, here's an estimate for incorporation.
Could we put it underneath? We can put benefit assessments, corporation as like an under.
As enabling steps.
Because that's board, you know, much like this discussion, the same, that's board direction, and it takes, and I don't mean to say it selfishly, but it takes my head off the platter if the board is directing me to look at incorporation or directing me to look at benefit assessments versus
Be clear.
I bring forward a staff report on a budget adjustment to pay for an incorporation study. Then I'm getting lynched, you know, so. I want to execute the board's will, and so I feel like if this is really what we want to do is investigate all these different, if we want to investigate all these different opportunities for enhancing revenue, then like you put it on there, with an agreement. Am I being too sheepish? I think.
No,
No, you're right, they direct.
but,
manage.
but I don't know what other directors are thinking about that.
A few months ago, I put on the agenda.
Well, let's discuss possible sources of revenue for the general fund. Then it become a board discussion at a board meeting. And we can discuss what our options are, and then the board can give you direction on what to look at.
Yeah,
It's good. It's good.
So do we even put that up there, or do you,
Well,
I mean, in terms of, bring forward to the board?
That would be an next.
not an objective, it would be an action. A supporting action is,
General fund.
so
we put up here, investigate, so this would be the objective, investigate
Right.
revenue model of the general fund.
Right.
Supporting action, bring forward an agenda item.
Yeah.
That's all,
Just
that's
discuss.
all alternatives.
yeah.
To discuss alternatives.
Alternatives.
And
because I don't think we can give you direction to do that
No,
specifically here.
No.
It has to be direction at a board meeting.
yeah. And do you wanna? I'm sorry, I'm a broken record.
Try again.
I'll move the needle.
Yeah. No, we need to put, to explore ways to retain staff.
Oh, yeah.
Staff.
it's fine.
Yeah.
To retain what?
Staff.
Yeah.
As an objective, not under the revenue.
That's it, yes.
It was an admin as well as money, because it has to do with work missions and
Yeah. Yeah, and all kinds of different things.
burnout. A lot of people are doing a lot more than 9 to 5.
Right. Anything else under this? Objectives,
Finance.
you can put activities or supporting actions underneath.
What about Ms. Fritz?
Since
This is now your core. R, I'll say R,
Thank you.
our.
So any subsets underneath that?
Or just,
Kinda
more,
soak on it.
more
Yeah.
objective.
More.
So we took a look at.
Do we want to put the long range financial planning on here?
Yeah,
I think so.
I
that's
think that might be a good thing for the strategic plan.
right. Investigate,
No,
We can
I
develop
develop
develop a
long
plan
range.
a
for,
long range.
Okay.
financial plan.
I don't know, it should be like develop a methodology for a long range financial plan or just
Could,
develop.
could you develop a long range financial plan and then supporting objectives would be.
Methodology,
Yeah.
because you and the, I mean, finance committee,
Yeah.
you and the finance committee can work on that, because that's. You know,
So I mean, I'm just like, we're
Yeah, I think develop-
submitting here,
a
so.
framework, develop a framework or a template or something for long-term
Yeah.
planning.
Yeah,
And this really,
because it can also be multiple
Right.
things.
Yes.
In one, it's not necessarily one document, and yeah, and I'm getting a little bit picky.
so develop a framework for long-term financial planning.
You know, yesterday when this was discussed, Denise, you inserted the word realistic.
Well, that's the goal.
this relates to something I've been trying to articulate for some time, and that is, like, show the integration, demonstrate the integration between this strategic planning process, how it links to, how it drives the capital improvement project in program development, and how it drives annual budget, and how that all works together. And to me, this could be part of that.
It's the linking is the.
My goal, we've been working on this, my goal is to have a worksheet to have presentation that anytime anyone managers is coming forward with, I need to buy a fire truck, I need to do the effluent line. I have a model, a financial model that we can see where, you know, with our net income every year and with all of our other things that we've already obligated us to spend, you can kind of see financially how that affects it and the decisions then to make, we need to go out for financing, or we can send our reserves, or this just isn't gonna work, you know, so it's, for me, it's a tool to give to you when making a decision. Whereas now we kind of just say, oh, well, we have 3.2 million. This one's 600. There's no even discussion really on, well, we've already committed to spend X, Y, Z. And so it's just a tool. And yes, I agree with you, like to drive the CIP and tie it to this, but also the budget is operational, so it's yearly just operations, and not everything is gonna be tied to, everything on the budget is not gonna be tied to the strategic plan.
Exactly.
Right, because some of it is just, we need to buy
Change.
these
Yeah.
widgets, we need to buy these screws, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so much annual budget is operational. We've got to keep this running, and the strategic plan doesn't speak to that.
Yeah.
Strategic plan is what we want to change, so that kind of adds to it, and then the
The new stuff.
and we can only do so much, and that's the point.
So does that objective that Haley already?
Yes.
Okay,
I think that's right.
all right.
But does that
What does it say?
satisfy what you're talking about?
Yeah, can you read the words?
Develop a framework for long-term financial plan.
Perhaps, maybe, let's try a supporting action. Yeah, if y'all like it, let's keep it, if not, kill it, but, you know. No. I don't know. A year or two, but we updated the strategic planning process, I would say. You know. Show or define or describe the integrated process of the strategic planning. Capital improvement project or program,
The links between,
and the linkages between.
Yeah. and because I think that you do this already. I don't think that I wanna stay out of operations. Because I think you already think like this. And I think it's important, at least for some of the board members, it's important to hear how you think when you make those.
Especially when we're doing quarterly.
Exactly.
The message that I'm getting, when we're
Exactly.
doing quarterly reports
Yes.
and that sort of thing. Tying the linkage to the strategic plan, which I've gotten that message. But my point is that not everything we do is directly tied to
And
the
that would be
strategic
true.
plan.
So true.
Yeah, and
Because
that
some
would
of
be
it
fine.
is just keeping the ship moving
Yeah,
forward, which like you had said, is not necessarily called out in the strategic plan.
So how
So
would
it's
we,
that understanding that
how would
it's,
we demonstrate that,
Could we,
the linkage?
do something like, specifically specifically related to objectives and strategic plan, develop budgetary projections for them. In other words, how they would fit into the budget, how would the, what we're trying to do in the strategic plan, what's the price, kind of what the price tag for that would be, or when we would pay for what, is that something?
like the relocation of the.
Yeah, like relocation.
so those types of things I can put, what I'm envisioning, and you've kind of seen a draft of what I was envisioning. I mean, I can put stuff out 10 years, I can put stuff out 20 years, and so, yes. As far as like the bigger projects, but that's also a lot of these things on the strategic plan are really big.
Yeah.
So they may not be spoken to on every quarterly report because, we're gonna have to spend a lot of time. I mean, some of these investigation of things and all of that.
I don't
So-
think anyone is asking you to speak to it on every quarterly report.
Mhm.
I think, to see a framework, just to describe your thinking,
Mm.
not that you're gonna report on it or have this written thing. I just think,
The example is here we are, strategic planning. Next Thursday, I think we're gonna discuss and consider, right? We'll approve. Some portion of this might be, and then, the budget process, it'll be I guess, April. It comes to the finance committee, right? Or May, okay? So it's like, so somehow, like,
Would there be a way, I'm thinking more how I cited things in academics, when you're answering a question. So is there a way to cite if there was something that was in the strategic plan that we're putting through on a report, and cite strategic goal 1, water services general, is there a way to cite it in there? So we're tying it to the strategic plan? Could that be a linkage?
feels like you're on the right track.
that's one of the ways.
Okay, but, and so what are you talking about in the budget?
In the budget.
Like, no, but where are we citing this? In the budget?
Yeah.
Quarterly reports and the,
That's the discussion.
yeah.
If we're doing something within that quarter report towards a strategic goal, can we cite it in there?
Yes, if it's towards a strategic goal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's how we could link it, because we say we can't link everything, but in the quarterly report,
Yeah.
if we chipped away at this strategic goal, can we just note it in the quarterly
With
report?
understanding that maybe there's nothing that we're chipping
Right.
away at
Right.
financially at that time. It's more just planning, developing, blah, blah, blah. It might not be financial.
Sure.
Yeah.
The narrative
Integrate your strategic plan information into the budget.
Say it again.
The narrative
Information
is
about
an
it.
easier place to put paragraphs and tables than the other half.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm just seeing if that answers, because you mentioned it for a while, linking the two, and I'm trying to figure out how Ms. Fritz would do it. That you could see where linking whatever was done in that quarter, if something was done,
Yes, yes,
in that quarterly report, we can cite that
yes.
this effort is working towards strategic goal. Blah, blah.
Yeah, I think we've made it clear. If there is a strategic planning connection, cite it, call it out. But with the understanding that there's not always going to be that linkage
Wait,
in a
Exactly what I thought.
financial nature.
yeah, and you just see how it goes.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, and if it's weird or if it doesn't work, then let us know.
Perfect, yeah. Good. And it doesn't belong on here.
No,
Yeah, I don't think so. The other wild card scheme may be, we hear that, Mr. Green and his staff spend a lot of time on projects, and not all those projects are in utilities department. And, there's a lot of projects in this district, and I've worked for a few companies where there's lots of projects, and there's usually either a PMO or project management office, or there's, okay, here's the project, so I wanted to raise that issue. Does the general manager need a project management staff? And not, under fire department or not under utilities, but reporting to you. I mean, is that?
No, it's something that we,
I know,
that
just what we need
talked
is more
about.
cost, but.
yeah, I mean, and I think that's definitely something that we should take a look at. Depending on the direction the district is going, especially with a lot of these projects. And those projects aren't just in utilities. Obviously, we've had a lot of work already completed that's in this recreation world that by default, Mr. Green is and Mr. Reaper and even Mr. Johnson are kind of like the experts in that permitting and work the closest with the county as far as permitting and have the connections at the county with the permitting. And by default, they're getting it. And Mr. Green has said, some of my salary probably should be coming from the general fund because I'm doing a lot more general fund work than I had anticipated that as a utilities manager. So I think the discussion of potentially hiring a project manager, knowing that some of that salary would have to come from the general fund, from utilities, shared across departments. I mean, we'll let Ms. Fritz talk about it in terms of its implication on the budget. But I think it's something to be explored, especially since we have a lot of projects coming up. A lot.
How about this? Explore how to inject project management principles into operations.
I'd
You
like
like
it. I'd like it. I don't know how to inject it unless there's a support.
No,
gap.
you're exploring how to inject. In other words, do I wanna go?
Let's start on something
Yeah,
tight.
do you wanna hire an outside person? Do you want to take one of your staff who has those propensities to do that? Do you wanna take a project so let's say the project is within water. Does that person then need to take courses on project management? You see what I'm saying? That's what you're gonna explore.
I can explore it and answer it now. We don't have the bandwidth. There's nobody on staff right now that could take on that.
Well, you know what?
I'm sorry.
Don't go there that quick.
Because we've had it internally, the discussion,
Oh.
and Jim, Mr. Green has already been the pseudo with Mr. Reaper and the backup as a project manager. I just know that they're.
But maybe you use Mr. Green as your person who gets trained and then give him more help. I mean,
I think the problem with making it a goal is that there's no, at the end point, unless we're gonna hire a project manager, there's no real end point to this sort of.
but maybe
There is.
that's the end point.
A well-defined district project management system. Here's how projects roll through the sequence. High level clarity, here is where expertise comes from. Right? And I don't know if this is connected, but I listened into the presentation from, I think it was MKN at Resources and Infrastructure Committee and on-call engineering services. And it sounded like the conversation was they'll provide engineering services and support for whatever project scopes. What I heard was, define project project definition. They'll evaluate alternatives, do cost estimates, kind of stuff that project staff would do. So that's a possibility as well. You hire someone, staff, you contract someone, it is. When I brought up, you train someone within a portion. Made it clear bandwidth's not there.
Yeah.
No one on staff is saying, I want to be this role. Okay, so
Maybe the thing is to ask general manager to come back with a report on
Yeah.
possible ways we could, the options we have.
Yeah,
establish
I think I
project
could
management.
develop
do that, yeah.
an agenda item where it's basically consultant or hire an additional
Yeah,
staff.
right.
member.
Just-
I think that's what
I don't really want it there.
I'm just.
the discussion at R and I on this on-call engineering service project management is gonna come before the board. The R and I committee unanimously voted to bring a recommendation. So, but that's not just for one department, it's for all of the utility department. But you could do something similar to that for the general fund projects too. And there are people on some of our standing committees who have, I know at least two on R and I who've had project management experience. So you could reach out that way for someone who might be interested in time project management that's needed.
I mean, you have said previously during our discussion in the last 2 days, we don't have the bandwidth. Well, let's figure it out.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't want to figure it out. I'm just saying that, like, when Vice President Thomas brought it up, I'm saying, yeah, we should. This is something we want to look at, and I've talked to Mr. Green about it. I'm just saying. The route we've already talked about internally is consultant or hiring another staff member, because I can't squeeze any more out of them, to be honest.
Yeah, but so then you bring it to us,
Okay,
but it needs to be here.
so you do want it on here?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And we totally accept that, you already know that.
Yeah.
We totally accept that. Oh, yeah.
Explore how to inject project management principles into operations. And you're gonna tell us how you want to do it. Well, into what?
Into project, into
Project management.
Into district operations?
the district operations.
Okay.
So, so the word inject, I know you're a nurse.
Oh.
I think incorporate might be a little.
Great, fine. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah, I am a nurse.
This is gonna be fatal.
Yeah. This is gonna hurt.
Well. I mean, I obviously. As far as budget's concerned, yeah, I mean, trying to, I don't. I don't have a thought that's gonna make any sense, so I'll just keep it.
You want me to put fire? You want to put fire in front of it?
I do wanna put fire in front of it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it.
We get it,
The fund
we get it.
This is not that different from fire marshal, is it? Is it where you go?
It might-
Exactly, and,
It might be.
It might be, I mean, we're gonna. do that stuff.
well, and that's where I.
Similar concept.
For me. You know, if I'm looking at my department. The fire marshal, although it seems like it's, and believe me, I have no problem with that being brought in, I absolutely is a need. But I also see to me, the greater need is what we were discussing earlier, which is the retention of our employees. And so that has to come first in my mind prior to a fire marshal. Because that's in a revolving door that's
Did
been
we
going
put it
on
in?
for years.
No, it's in there.
Yeah.
All of it's
Retention, isn't it? Retention.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so I think we're covering it. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I work.
But I mean, who knows what Mr. McElhaney is gonna come up with about how this person
That is true.
would inject. themselves.
No one knows.
Who knows?
Uh,
I just think it needs to be there,
I agree.
because you guys have had those conversations.
But
already.
to the fire chief's point, even though we've said that not everything will happen on these strategic goals. And I don't think we put it on there, but maybe the fire marshal should be
well, retention.
an objective or goal
That would go
Within-
under the fire protection.
under fire protection.
Yeah, well, we should, I think it'll be looking at that committee level as to how to make all that happen, because
I mean-
it's a budget issue, of course, too.
Technically, that could, be under the explore ways to retain staff, because that would definitely retain me. for a long time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just to your, but. If we're looking at, from the financial perspective to get the projects done here and looking into, and we've already said it verbally, we're talking about hiring a project manager. You know, you have the project of inspecting
Yeah,
developed parcels and not only undeveloped parcels. My only point is if we're gonna address something here in project management for all of our other projects, the chief has some very large projects that we already talked about, fire protection being a very big deal. So I think it's fair to at least have the board discuss whether or not we put the fire marshal in that fire protection objective.
At this point, I think, I want to see your report on project management.
Yeah.
And how the fire marshal would, maybe you'd incorporate. the
Oh,
fire
you
marshal.
incorporate the fire marshal into the project
Yeah.
management. Okay, that's okay, fair enough, fair enough.
That, because the weed abatement and all that is a
Yeah.
project.
Okay,
Wow, I've known hundreds of project professional types of people who, that's a skill set. You know, and that's, sounds and feels like a very different skill set. Yeah, you could try to combine it, but it feels like an objective in under fire protection that is something like figure out how to accomplish, how to staff the increased demands that are coming from its ordinance and
that was my thought, is that it's very, the fire marshal is very linked to what we put in terms of his long range goals, evacuation routes, enforcement of the ordinance.
Yeah.
And the fire marshal is a mechanism to get that. Even though, yes, it's a project, but I think the fire marshal is a mechanism to achieve that. And this is a mechanism to start figuring out, which I'm assuming, based on public comment and what we've talked about here, this is a mechanism to make sure we're getting projects done efficiently and timely.
and it could save us money.
Coordinated.
Yeah.
And
So maybe we should leave it at that.
and so that's my only point is,
Yeah,
that I
but-
think if we put this here based on some of our, and it's mostly utilities projects, some parks and rec, that the fire marshal would be the same concept, but in,
Yeah.
you know, in that fire protection.
And then of course, it's all under the umbrella of funding.
Correct.
You know, so we, you know, we can't, you know,
So
the money's
just some-
on fire.
just something to think about.
So, yeah.
I mean, we're gonna work on it in the background,
I think we could.
you know, regardless, but,
Do we need to check with Mr. Gary, who's been sitting like this, to see if he has anything else? he
Are we,
needs?
so I can cut him loose? Are we almost winding up here? Because I think.
Yeah,
we're
we're pretty close.
Anything else that you need to add? Well,
I've got no more incoming.
Yeah, I don't either. So, I don't either.
you're good to go, David.
Yeah.
All right, check off.
Thank you.
Okay,
So are we adding that underneath this? I mean, it's a financial. I would imagine.
I think it goes underneath, my opinion would be, it would go under your fire.
Okay.
Your core area.
But again, I think we have all sorts of, everything's kept very general under there right now.
right.
There's nothing about evacuation routes. Yeah, so I think we keep it general, because we're gonna have to work this out in terms of what the budget constraints are.
Right.
We can't assume there's gonna be a fire marshal, don't have the money for
Yeah,
it.
and you don't want to
Fire
put that as an objective.
Right, no, unless we have the budgetary resources for it, we don't have at this point.
I think it's good.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think we are.
Is there any place that you'd want to put community resources, getting the 501c3, you're doing some work for the Lions? Developing that as a revenue?
I think we did that. I think that is. good.
Well, there's some of it under the facilities and resources.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and also,
501Cs,
Yeah,
that's all
sorry.
renovations. We didn't really talk about it in other areas, specifically the Parks Rec and Open Space. I think it was mostly just about all, yeah. But it's there.
Well, we have there's some activities going on with the firefighters, you know, on May 3rd, there's the dinner for the firefighters.
Yeah. That expensive dinner.
Expensive dinner, it's going to the good cause.
They're sold out.
They're sold
Yeah,
out.
they're sold out. Are you going?
They're sold out.
They're sold out.
I'll be there. I think maybe.
I'll be there.
But,
I'll be there.
but one of the things is that whoever, I don't know who's doing it, but they've approached.
It's actually under the auspices of the Fire Safe Council,
Right.
but it's a support group.
It's a support group. Well,
Yeah.
the community council has been approached to say if we don't raise enough money here for the projects that we're working on, they're gonna submit a grant. And that was one of the things I just want to bring up. There are sources of money out there.
Right.
And you mentioned the Lions Club is working on.
Yeah.
They said they would do the part of the East Ranch, the picnic area.
Yeah.
So the
Sorry.
community council is working with the Lions, and that source, and I'm just not sure if he's got it in here as a revenue source or consideration.
For my,
I
for
just
my,
thought-
for my experience the finance committee, we tend to kind of end up falling back on that kind of, private fundraising as the only thing we've got, because the vet's all, for instance. I think what I'm trying to push, I'd like to see in our strategic plan is looking at the public revenue, the public funding that we can raise through, serious, sizable public funding, because we always have the nonprofit. People coming forward, the Lions and, they don't have a lot of money, but I think my focus, I think our focus would be on the public.
Right, that's what I was trying to bring, again, I have to go back where I mentioned last year, when Tom's wife was on the healthcare district, she did the 501c3. As a community council, we've contributed toward 3
Right.
ambulances, we paid over $38,000 and we bought them a used one. And we've contributed over 20,000 on each of the last 2, which were, they just took delivery, so we've put in, what's that, $78,000 over the last 5 years I've been there. If I have a conduit to get here through the fire groups or somebody on the outside, I can get you the money, but I need.
You need like a, what contribute. to-
My big concern is that we don't mix the money, it doesn't go into your treasury, you isolate it, you have some group that we can go to. I have members on my board that will bring money into here. They said, the community council thinks this is a centerpiece of the community and we should support it. If we have a conduit to get there, I can get you some money.
You have
So
presented,
we've had this discussion before,
Yes.
and I think. How do I put this? There's some worries
Right.
about those monies coming over to where and not going where you want them.
Well, we do project specifics. We do the grants, and we say, we'll give you X amount of dollars to the floor, we'll do the sound system. We can bring it through the Lions Club or what, we can do the sound system. We can do little projects, we can remodel the kitchen or whatever,
But you're already a 501c3, correct?
but we're not a service club. We collect money, we give it back out.
So the way that benefit is working for the firefighters is that the money is being given to the fire safe focus,
Uh-huh.
and then they're giving it to our union.
Right,
And so
giving it to.
to the union, to the
Oh,
the local,
okay.
the local
Right.
union, yeah. So I mean, technically, it's not even really coming to the CCSD, but it is
Right.
for CCSD.
projects. We just don't want to commingle the money. I
Right,
can't go to my grantor, people who think that I'm giving money to you. That's the quickest way not to raise money. But what they'll support the firefighters. The firefighters are very important.
Can I ask this question, because you brought something up, and maybe Mr. Hirsch, if it goes to the union. They're gonna rebuild their own station?
Well, they're doing improvements. to the
The
station.
fences involved, they have a list of,
Yeah, they're doing, or buying, there was a talk about buying turnout lockers and then buying a potential drone for the program, there's a jet ski for the ocean rescue program, those types of things, and then,
Whose
yeah.
property does that become?
Say that again.
Whose property does that become?
It's all CCSD property.
they donate to this.
They're making, exactly. Yeah,
And it ends up being a donation to you. It becomes your property.
from at that point, from the union, I was.
So do you want to
Fire
put,
Sys- Now, this is the fire Sys council, the one they donate you to, the 501c3.
Yes,
Yeah, so you get the donation, you get the, rather than deduction.
Right.
With this donation to this.
so underneath, administration of finance, do you want to put something, is there something there about seeking other revenue? And if so, to look at 501 3C3s or something, is that where you want to put it? Or do you want to put an objective by itself?
We can put it on there. I mean, we work with the 501c3s,
Right.
on some projects.
Right.
Are you saying to?
Well, right.
continue to-
Right now, the Lions have stepped up, said that they will do it. When we were working with Tom, we were trying to do a 501c3 that just isn't the energy or the passion
For the
to
vet cell,
do
yeah.
a 501c that supports CCSD. So we're trying to look who's going to be around, who can do it. The Lions have stepped up, said we'll do it. We can use them as a conduit. But we have people in the community, they just don't want to commingle the money. They just don't want to give it to you. But they'll support the projects.
you like what you're doing.
Yeah, but we're not gonna give you my money, okay?
Yeah, I think that the healthcare district, when I know of it, there's a certain special category for healthcare
Yes.
districts. They can have foundation, they can set up a foundation. Is what that was.
Right.
I don't think we can,
Right.
because it's for hospitals.
Right.
It's intended, I think it was mainly intended for hospital, I mean, David might know,
But-
but,
Not really, other than I know a lot of 501c3 foundations
Yeah.
have been created like to support activities of public agencies.
Right.
yeah.
Whether it's a police foundation,
Mhm.
an educational foundation.
PTAs.
Bunches of those.
Yeah.
out there.
PTAs.
We just need that conduit and then somebody to take the responsibility on it, foundation.
So this is, you know, interesting conversation of which way should district go as pros committee struggles with this concept of a community park plan. You know,
Okay.
and maybe we'll get some engineering to figure out what it's gonna cost. And then we'll have, this is how big it is. And do we somehow go towards the, like, form a, like, FFRP?
Yes, I think
Looks,
that's gonna be
FFRP
a
looks at
solution.
fiscally rent,
Yeah.
does there become a community organization that's a 501c3 that is the community park?
Right, we've tried, we've looked.
Yeah.
I've been working on it 3 to 4 years with Steve, with Julie, just nobody wants to step up and say, I wanna be the FFRP. with the skate. Or not skateboard, but East Ranch, okay? It just isn't the energy. When you look at our demographics, again, we got a bunch of white, old folks, we're getting older.
Well, I think it's.
We just
so-
don't anybody there to-
So I
it's
would
connection
the
to-
energy has to be grassroots.
Right, and we haven't got the energy.
FFRP started with the movement to
Right.
save the ranch from a development.
Right.
It's all a grassroots thing. You know, 501c3s kind of have to come from
Passion.
bottom up.
What we're taught in the
Yeah.
workshops, you
You
need
can't
a passion.
create them, you can't stimulate them from
Oh, yeah.
top down.
Absolutely.
That's the problem.
It's just not
Finding what
coming,
that's all.
it's just not there.
That's all.
Yeah, so.
So for now, so the path is connect with community council.
Somebody, try to get an existing one or.
Yeah, so, I don't know where to go, if this is an objective or not, but I think it's.
Yeah.
It's a good discussion, but I think, I mean, yeah.
I can kind of just do this in the background. I mean, if you want to put it as an objective to connect with 501c3s, I can do it. I just don't know if I'm gonna, if I report on this every year. I'll just say, yeah, no luck or, you know,
Yeah,
it's. I don't know if it's.
Tom and I've been doing it since 22
Yeah.
and nothing's happened yet.
I mean, it's up to you. You can put it on there and I'll report out on it. But it would almost be like there's no target date because
Yeah,
it's
I-
like continuous.
It's too, yes, too on, I wouldn't make it an objective.
I would need it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's
Just
too.
want to let you know it's there. We'll try to get it to you.
Yeah, great.
Good conversation.
Yeah,
Each of you received an email yesterday from a public member regarding, some of our discussion about public comment.
right.
So I wanted to give us an opportunity to reiterate that we like public comment, even if it's negative. A lot of the conversations that were being had was about the misinformation piece and trying to make sure we're getting the correct information out there.
Right.
So nobody here on staff or the board discourages public comment.
No,
No, well, that was the nature of my comment as we're closing that conversation. That we were discussing at depth the impact on morale and things related to statements that are would seem to be truthful.
Right.
And
They misrepresented.
misrepresented and no, I feel hurtful. And, you know, I commented that nonetheless, you know, the staff all looks for any signal in those messages. And, you know, my impression was that it was a very positive reaction, that your answer was, yes, no matter what the tone, we're looking, you and staff are always looking for whatever signal information, and by signal, I mean the relevant suggestions. And you're always looking for that regardless of the tone. And that's, and that's the commitment of when we say transparent, that's a commitment you make, and I feel that if we're doing that.
Well, I think so. I think this meeting, we've put out 55 pages here of transparency of the community, the staff. We put it out there. We have to take care of it, go back and reread it. If there's a problem, what happens is you get all this information out there. Now, if you read it and there's a problem we haven't tackled, you now become part of the problem. So you got one side, you're the problem, we're all problems now. If it's in this 55 pages, we all know about it. So if it's something that we gotta do a solution on, we need to solve it.
And we may not have solved all
did,
problems identified in the 55 pages,
But-
but we don't have the capacity.
But for the community, we've laid it out. We gave, if you want material, we gave you 10, 15 pages of where we are weak right now, and we're going to have successes with them next year with them.
Yeah, that's just my only thing. I wanted to walk out of here saying, love public comment.
We do, we got it.
I love public comment.
We need to-
What I was trying to say is that I was trying to reassure, I mean, I think it's talking to staff that don't take it. Don't take it too personally or too serious, often too seriously, because there's a lot of comment that is. It's kind of a predictable comment
Right.
from certain people who just love the comment. It's their thing,
Yeah.
and we all listen to it and everything, but
In the framework of this strategic plan process, that came up in the context of responses in the SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
That's what led to that.
Yeah.
One thing that might be useful, I mean, I was reflecting as we were redefining the core areas, and we took some of the descriptive adjectives and such out of the goals, those high level goals. And we did that because we have these core values. I mean, and the core values are defined as these drive all of our behavior and actions. And it might be worth just, kind of holding comment on from your perspective. I mean, how important are those core values in driving what you do, and serving this district?
I mean, I think we use those as kind of the bedrock, and I think we've done a fairly good job in terms of taking those core values and then aligning them with some of the things that we do by sitting down at the vets hall, whether it's the chief, myself, and Mrs. Dodson, or the community letters that we blast out, or try and provide as much accurate information as we can, the fiscal responsibility in terms of, being transparent in our daily operations. We bring almost, within the budget and procurement policy, we bring everything forward for authorization to the board before money's being spent outside of, daily district operations or things that have to happen on that level. Obviously, everybody's safety conscious. And I think, when we look at our core values, teamwork, I don't think we can demonstrate a better or illustrate a better example of teamwork than what we've had here today, and our staff. Mr. Geary's staff is out there reading water meters. Instead of doing facilities work, he's out there helping the utilities team. So I think we're doing it. I think we do it, just it's ingrained in everything that we're doing. We'll try to demonstrate that.
If I could just make a comment, we 5 board members, and of course, Dick fits in as well. We are all members of the public. Right. And having been here a little bit longer than, most of you or all of you, I can remember numerous times getting up and speaking at the dais in public comment, and it wasn't always well received by the board. The difference was, I was right and they were wrong. We have a much more competent board, right, David, than we've had. Much more honest board.
And general manager too.
And gentlemen. Right.
12, if you go back 12, 15 years ago, the town was divided. I had friends on the board. They said, no matter what we did, we always had 1,200 votes against us. We were so divided. You had complaints, they'd line up on each side of the room. We're down to, Haley and I had this conversation. So now we're getting 3 or 4 folks that maybe not liking what we did. We came from 1,200. It's a win. We're at a point where
Quieter.
you're 99.9% there.
Yeah.
You sort of complain or think, well, nobody's showing up for input. That's because they're all happy and they have nothing to put in. So I think it's a win. I know when Don Howell was president, he always wanted people on, there's 17 people on Zoom or whatever, and he wanted more people. But if nobody shows up to the meeting, that tells you everything is good.
I hope so. Sometimes I worry that some folks would just wave the white flag.
Yeah.
No, that's not happening. That's not, see, I get the different feedback from you guys.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
We still want people involved.
You
but
want them
your-
involved.
Your point is well taken.
But you got them on
Yeah,
the standing committees. It was just 3 years ago. That was a weakness, that we couldn't get anybody on the standing committees. That's not a problem. We've got some new faces. We're moving.
Yeah.
The forward. But going back to my glass house again, you take it personally. And then if you throw your name in on it, it's wrong. But the community's behind you. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and adjourn. Is there anything else we need to do? Okay. So.